Recording in progress. Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Renee Garrett, and I'm your Speech Therapy PD podcast host for Brainstorms Functional Neuro Rehab for SLPs. Before we get started, we have a few items to alert you to. Each episode is 60 minutes and will be offered for zero point 0.1 ASHA CEU. If you're joining us for this live episode and your state license requires live CEUs, be sure to complete all course modules, including the one that says complete course, by the end of the day on your Speech Therapy PD account. Here are the disclosures. Lisa Thornburg is employed full-time with the League for People with Disabilities in Baltimore, Maryland, and has no conflicts of interest or other financial or non-financial relationships. I am the founder of BrainBridge Connect LLC. As the host of this podcast, I do receive financial compensation from Speech Therapy PD. I am also the secretary and president-elect of the Communication Disorders Foundation of Virginia. Questions tonight can be written in the Q&A or the chat box and will be answered throughout the presentation. Now we welcome our guest, Lisa Thornburg, MS, CCC, SLP, who has been a speech language pathologist for over 30 years, working at every level of care in adult neurorehabilitation, including acute care, inpatient and outpatient rehabilitation, and home health care. Lisa is the director of the Snyder Center for Aphasia Life Enhancement, or SCALE, and the Multiple Sclerosis Day Program at the League for People with Disabilities. Lisa, thank you so much for being here. I can't believe how fast this year's going by. It seems like forever ago since we chatted, and now here we are.
Well, thanks, Renee. It's a real pleasure to be with you today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure for me. I'm so grateful that you agreed to do this. I tend to start out by just asking guests to explain to us their path into speech language pathology. I think it's interesting to hear people's journey, how they came into the field. So, would you mind sharing that with us?
Sure, it might not be typical in that I really didn't want to go to college at all. I was a very good student, but I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I didn't see the point in spending a whole bunch of money if I didn't have a purpose. And, whatever 37 years ago, you would. Um, declare a major, and so my father was pressuring me, just pick something, pick something, pick something. And as time got shorter and shorter and shorter, I just went to the career center, which back then had a bunch of cards and a bunch of boxes, and I picked one that said speech language pathology, and I said fine. And I ended up going to Loyola, which was a college then in Baltimore, and loved Baltimore from day one, loved Loyola from day one, and loved speech language pathology. And I was just sucking everything up like a sponge. And originally, my focus was on infant and toddler therapeutic feedings, failure to thrive babies. And then towards my senior year in college, I met someone with aphasia, and I just fell in love all over again, and was lucky enough in my clinical fellowship to work with a private practice that gave me a lot of experience in the home health field and acute care field with adult neurogenic communication disorders, and that's where I've been ever since.
It's interesting is when I was in early grad school, I thought, NICU might be where I go. And I think it's interesting that a lot of us that landed in the adult neurogenic world felt like that. Like we thought we would do maybe babies because it seems like such a challenge, but also such a thrill. And then a lot of us wound up not doing that and doing something with neurogenic communication disorders. So I think that's is very interesting. We should probably do a study on that, but that's another day, another time, right?
Yeah. Where we
So you,
started versus where we ended up.
yeah, yeah. When you mentioned Baltimore, is that from where you're from originally? Baltimore?
No, I grew up outside of Philadelphia.
Okay, gotcha. So I'm sure there are people that are going to listen to this who maybe haven't heard of the scale program,
Mhm.
and just what makes it different and unique. So, can you first explain to us what the Scale Aphasia program is.
Sure, sure. SCALE, as you mentioned in the introduction, is an acronym for the Snyder Center for Aphasia Life Enhancement. And it was really the brainchild of another speech language pathologist, Denise McCall, who is my long-term friend. We've been friends for more than 30 years also. And Denise was very involved in adult research with aphasia and had a number of grants through University of Maryland. And as those grants were wrapping up, the aphasia centers were starting to grow. Aphasia Center of California, the Adler Aphasia Center in Mayfield, New Jersey, and Denise visited all of them and called me one day, and I thought she wanted a job. I was working in home care again after leaving a position in hospital administration, and I thought, oh, I can get you a job. And she said, no, no, no. I want you to start an aphasia center with me. And I said, what's that? And she said, well, it'll be a nonprofit organization, and I have a family that I'm working with, and they'll do the funding. And I said, I don't know how nonprofits work. I get paid? I need to get paid. And we figured it all out. And the Snyder Center is a hugely philanthropic family in the Baltimore area and had a loved one, Howard Snyder, whose stroke happened when he was 47 and had three kids under 10. And our medical model of health insurance told him when he was done with therapy, but he didn't feel like he was done with therapy. And so Scale was born with the support of the Snyder family as a freestanding nonprofit in 2008. And Denise and I spent time in the basement of a church sharing it with the children's Bible study while a facility was built out just for our program. And literally, when I said we were, 10-year-olds jumping up and down in that new space, it was absolutely true because we knew what it meant for the people that we serve to have a place, to have a purpose. Since their insurance no longer covers, or some never really had a lot of speech therapy, their friendships had changed. This was their place. We were building a place for them. And from the beginning, people with aphasia were part of our advisory board. They were part of our planning board, helped us. We did a lot of discussion in the beginning to say, why would you come to a place like this? What do you need here? And, different people told us different things. Many people, of course, said, I want to practice communication. I want to keep getting better. And other people said, well, I don't work anymore. I want to come somewhere. I want to be somewhere. I want to be with people that I don't have to pretend or sit alone, unable to communicate. And so we grew steadily through about 2014 when we decided to look for a partner, and the League for People with Disabilities stepped up. The League has been a Baltimore staple. Actually, our 99th birthday is this month, so we're actually planning for the 100 year next year. So 100 years in Baltimore, started out serving children born with developmental disabilities, and then as those children became older, they created day habilitation. And as those children grew even into adults, they created work programs. And the League has added Scale as a specialty adult day program, along with a medical adult day program and the multiple sclerosis day program. And together, that's 13 distinct programs that the League provides in Baltimore.
That's amazing. I mean, and we see that so much with all the cuts to Medicaid and Medicare, but also just private insurance. And I've probably said this ad nauseum on the podcast, but I get a lot of clients, even when I was still working for the health system, an outpatient that they are young. And ironically, you said Mr. Snyder was 47. My dad was 47 when he had a stroke. So that is really, I don't think I knew that. So that's kind of
Yes.
a crazy connection. But we see so many patients who get 2 visits or 4 visits, or, they get cleared after a traumatic brain injury or a stroke for going back to work in 2 weeks, but they have just come home. And, we definitely call acquired brain injury and traumatic brain injury the invisible disability because people can walk sometime, a lot of the time, and they look normal.
Mhm.
And I don't like using those terms, but that's the terms that we hear a lot is that they look normal. So the assumption is they can go back to work. They can go back to being a parent. They can go back to, their everyday life. But yet we know as speech language pathologists that that's not necessarily the case. So I think it's amazing that you all have been able to partner with the league, who's been around for a long time, and offer these things that so many people need that are not necessarily something they would have access to. So thank you and hats off to everybody there because there is such a need.
Mhm.
So I'm very grateful to have you on to talk about all this because I'm seeing it in my own community. Um, I'm in the city that has the largest land mass in our Commonwealth of Virginia, and yet we have some of the least amount of speech language pathology services for our community. So a
Mhm.
lot of patients are opting to do some non-traditional things, more so for PT, because I think PT can be a little bit more crafty and creative and call it wellness and not necessarily deal with private payer insurance. But it's just really discouraging for us, I think, as practitioners to know that we are not able to do what we do, like what we do, 2 visits, 4 visits, 6 visits. Like most of us are very highly trained and talented SLPs, but we can't get much done in a 40-minute session across 3 weeks, twice a
Mhm.
week for 3 weeks. That's 6 visits. That's nuts.
Mhm.
So I think there's just such a need for this type of program and this type of model.
Mhm.
So, um, what would you say makes the approach to aphasia rehabilitation for the SCALE program more unique?
Well, I think the idea that it's built around a community, that we have our clients at the center. It's not me saying, I've been doing this a long time and you need to do X, Y, and Z because X, Y, and Z are the very hardest things for you to do. And that's what we're going to drill, 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 practice, practice, practice. And it's kind of flipping it around through the life participation approach to put that individual's goals, choices, and strengths at the forefront. So we say, what is it that you're interested in? What's most important to you? So I think our approach is one of the things that really makes us unique, that we have a community and we're building this social connections, but at the forefront is the individual's choice and goals for the future, their strengths and interests and their environments. But at the same time as they're working on themselves, they feel part of a community. I feel like another thing that makes us unique is our focus on empowering survivors. We call them survivors or members at our center as teachers. And we do that through our graduate student intern program. We have speech language pathology interns, we have pre-med students, neurology students, cognitive neuroscience students from Hopkins. We have OT PhD students who come and get to see 50 individuals with aphasia that come here. And it's a wonderful learning experience for them. And we highlight these members as the teachers because they're living with, I could do this 37 more years. I'm still not living with aphasia, and they live with it every day. And we empower them to be teachers. And we have Judy Crane, who is our stroke peer mentor. She is a stroke survivor with aphasia, and she leads our community outreach group, our advocates who are called Speak Out Aphasia, who teach in the community. And that's the important thing, that the community as a whole sees these individuals as competent, as something to share, something to teach. But students in physicians, nurses, other allied professionals need to understand that what these patients need in terms of communication, understanding, involvement in their care. I tell students when they come to us, there are three main focuses. One is that the people that you're learning from are the experts living with aphasia. And I tell them they're going to learn what skills they bring to this setting and feel good about that. And you're also going to learn what's missing that you need to work on to do your job better. And you also need to learn how programs like this work in case you need to start one, because
Yeah.
there's lots of holes and there's lots of work to be done to support our medical model.
Well, I think what a lot of people don't realize too is that, when you're, I guess, on the outside as a caregiver or a patient, the trust is placed a lot in the physicians, and a lot of the physicians don't have much in the way of neuro training. I know I've talked to a lot of internal med doctors that were in charge of a lot of stroke patients in the acute care setting, and they really didn't have a ton of neuro training. And it was also kind of similarly funny today. I was looking at someone who makes memes for speech, and it's May the 4th, and so they were doing the Star Wars themed thing, and it was like dysphagia, otherwise known as expressive dysphagia. So it was kind of funny to see that because I've seen that so many times, but it is the lack of connection. And so having that space where more physicians and scientists in training can come in and see, and like you said, learn from the people who are the survivors who are living this experience, is so, so crucial, and so helpful, not only for the patient, but particularly for the people who are going in to serve this community as medical professionals, because they don't know what they don't know.
Mhm.
And so if you're not taking the opportunity, or they're not provided the opportunity, it's, kind of trial by fire, if you will.
Mhm. It's true. They don't always, and our OTs tell us that a lot. Even, getting to the level of PhD and coming here and having, 20 minutes of a single class at some point that covered aphasia as either receptive or expressive, and that was pretty much it. And to understand that, all the different skills are affected differently, and that people have different strengths. And these days, with all the technology supports that um, help communication, that they can really get at what's important to individuals living with aphasia and do their job better.
Yeah, because a lot of times people don't realize reading can be impacted, for example, by aphasia. And so they're like, well, we gave them the stroke booklet. And it's like, well, that's great, but they are having trouble with their reading, and they can't decode that and understand and comprehend what all those things mean. And then you have the whole other piece of health literacy, which is a whole other podcast that we could probably do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you mentioned incorporating the life participation approach. How do you think, when you're having these students come in, and they're seeing the life participation approach, do they have like a light bulb moment where they're like, this makes total sense? Or is it more like, oh my gosh, I never, or kind of a combination of I'm confused, but also amazed?
I think it is a combination of reactions, and we've had students now for many, many years. I think we started in 2010 taking on students, and so we've kind of been fine tuning their experience so that they really get to focus on the members and the activities and the framework, develop that framework in their brain as to why we're doing what we're doing, and how a conversation is treatment, and how you work treatment goals into other activities. And when we bring people on, it's not here are 50 charts to review. It's sit in on a group, and we have a series of journal prompts to guide kind of what they're looking at. What am I doing? What are the members doing? What is the body language involved? And someone is initiating a topic by picking up a pen because they don't talk, they write, and how to navigate and read that whole room. And we actually spend quite a bit of time with the students observing, because I want them to see how everyone is involved in the conversation, how this is a shared effort. And I think that's one of the highlights of life participation, especially in an environment like we're able to provide time and know people long term. Continually teaching them about their aphasia, my aphasia, what I need from my conversation partners, asking for what they need, expressing their choices, expressing their needs, And I talk about it access in like a pebble in the pond. So if you're starting with that individual and things that we can control here in our scale groups and then in our whole scale community, and then maybe what can they do at home, and then maybe in the wider community. And many times that is started by them learning about themselves, their aphasia, the things that they're good at, and developing that confidence to try some new things here, then maybe try some new things out in the environment. And how can we provide that access and support, resources, and even practice to let them try some new things outside of our walls? Our families also, as part of the LPAA, know that we're available, that we can help with things that they need, education. Um, I'm trying to, there's so many different examples, but we also have an online group that meets once a month and has been very supportive of each other all through COVID. This remained a core group for us. And I think too, I was lucky enough to expand our group outside of speech therapy a little bit after COVID, because once folks got back and you lay eyeballs on them and they'd changed quite a bit in terms of mobility or weight or communication or mood. And I was able to add a case manager that again helps us break down some barriers in the community and improve some access. I also have a therapeutic recreation specialist who gets to spend individual time with people and say, well, what are you doing? What do you want to do? What did you do before? How can we modify that? How can we help you gain access and do more?
Yeah, and I got to work with a in inpatient rehab. We had TRs and we had them at assisted living as well. And I think that's definitely one of those professions I think is really underrated. People don't know what they do or what they offer. Um, and in some places, I think they just think they're like the bingo person who does the bingo game. But I had a whole different perspective because the first TR I ever worked with, we had the therapy dog together. And
Mhm.
so, in inpatient rehab, we had a therapy dog, and he and I were the ones who mostly used that with a wide variety of patients from traumatic brain injury to aphasia to, just different things. And they're just such a valuable resource as part of our multidisciplinary team. And again, I'm glad you said that because it's just such a space where I feel like they're very underrated or just unknown. People don't know what TRs do. So I'm so grateful that you mentioned that.
It helps me challenge the students from other disciplines as well. So even we have different types of groups here, ones that are very structured, working on language, speech,
Mhm.
articulation, reading, writing. We have ones that are, somewhat structured around conversational topics, pop culture, sports. Then we have a group that are activity based, like art, games. We have a woodworking group. And my challenge to students is, okay, this is a woodworking progress. They're making a cornhole board right now. But I'm like, okay, I want you to go through all of the cognitive processes that these individuals are using now, whether they're speaking or not speaking. They're remembering where they left off. They're asking for help. Safety is first. They're putting things in order. They're, remembering to clean up the environment. So it's really a learning opportunity for other cognitive processes and what our role is in kind of facilitating and co-facilitating this type of a group.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what would you say, and this is probably not a one powerful change. I think it's going to be many. What are some of the most powerful things you've seen with the participants as they are able to connect and participate in the program?
Hmm.
Like your success, your wins, or even not, even if you have some that aren't necessarily 100% success stories.
Well, I think about this a lot because I've known so many people now through this program and learned so much, and I'm quite the Pollyanna again when the students come in and I tell them very honestly I love what I do. I laugh every day. I learn something every single day. And it is from these people that I get to know, these survivors. And I would say that, the changes, the powerful changes come in maybe just three general categories. For some folks, scale becomes their community. If they're not working, they may leave their house for church or doctor's appointments, but these are their friends. This is their place. This is what they do. And I feel like people who find themselves here, they, find their friends here. Somebody who might have just tried out a morning now comes 2 days a week, now is working with the TR and his mom to find things he can do in his community. He's willing to try some things outside of this, but he needed time to grow here and gain that confidence, this being his community. I think another kind of powerful support that we do is more like a bridge. So for someone who might have started on Zoom because, again, he was embarrassed. He's from a culture actually that looks down on disability, and as a man, didn't thought I'm broken now, I'm less than now. So he started on Zoom, and then I got him here for a morning, and then he started 2 days, and then he started in our Toastmasters group and that aphasia advocacy group I was telling you about. So there's no more out there than that. And then he actually started to do more in the community where he started volunteering a little bit at a company, and then he dropped one of our days, and then he started volunteering 2 days at this other job, and then he dropped his in-person day and was back to Zoom again. So it was kind of this bridge from nothing to everything to something even bigger than I think he would have anticipated. And I think, the other kind of category I might call us is like a home base, where after a certain amount of time, we have met two members, one who is one of our youngest members, a brain injury survivor, and he he is 30 now. He's been with us for 10 years and works part-time, but he's not giving up his scale days. He has no intention of ever stopping to come. It is his home base. It is where he feels he's not masking, he can be himself. We have another individual who went back to work full-time at a very highly supportive community. They took the time to understand his aphasia, his work setup, the distance he walked from the parking lot to, they moved his office, very supportive work environment. He still uses one vacation day a week to come to scale. And again, that's 9 years he's been
That's
coming.
amazing.
So
Yeah. No, no, I was just gonna say that's amazing because I think that's the thing is the long-term relationship. Because again, a lot of us who've worked in the hospital systems, we're not given that opportunity. A lot of times we have a patient who, again, we get 4, 2, 6, whatever visits, and then we sit there and we never hear from them again. We wonder what happened. Were they able to regain, their community identity? Were they able to do some sort of gainful employment? Maybe not the job they did before, but were they able to return? Because a lot of our patients are very young. And my viewpoint of very young is very different than it was when I was very young. Because, now we hear 60 for a stroke. 60 is young. It's young. People are working longer. They're working for a variety of reasons. I have someone right now who's in their 80s who still works because he likes what he does.
Mhm.
He has no motivation. It's not he's not financially motivated to work. It's because he enjoys his job. But we often don't get that long-term relationship, and I think it is a real barrier to life participation and quality of life, really,
Mhm.
because we're the ones who often provide that space that's safe and comfortable. And like you said, people don't have to mask with us. We are able to kind of break down those walls and those barriers and also support caregivers. And
Mhm.
I think you all do a lot of that as well in providing some education and support for caregivers. So, can you tell us about that?
Sure, sure. Our caregivers, our members are so lucky to have advocates, and not everybody does, and not, you know, the same type of advocacy from a caregiver. And I think over the years we've tried to find that balance because caregiving is a difficult role, and stroke, aphasia, brain injury affects more than just the survivor. All of his communication partners are affected. Roles, identity change in the family. And it's caregiving is a hard thing. And so the last thing we want to tell caregivers is you're doing it wrong or you're not doing enough. And we try to present to them, we'll meet you where you are. What do you need from us? Is there something that you don't understand? Is there something you're struggling with? And, you know, it's the whole gamut that, you know, we have folks who have strokes in their 30s, and when you can no longer work and or live independently, you come back to live with mom. Mom's in her 70s or 80s and doesn't really, may not really understand the preserved cognition and competence, and treats you like a child because you are her child. And,
Hmm.
you know, and kind of navigating those roles, and trying to support the individual in advocating for themselves, but also support that caregiver, knowing that their life has been changed quite a bit. Another conversation I just had recently with a really wonderful caregiver is she was um, telling me how they set aside time every night to drill, 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 and practice, practice, practice. And, you know, with this preschool book and these flashcards. And I said, that might, I said, if it's a choice and you're both enjoying that time together, that's wonderful. But you already have a job. Your job is mom, you know, and you don't feel like you have to perform therapy every single day of the week. That may not be your job. And don't put that pressure on yourself, especially if neither you nor he is enjoying it. Um,
Hmm.
if it feels like a chore, you know, or and I can also provide some other topics and resources and materials that might be more interesting for the time you spend working on language. I actually have another wonderful long-term client whose children are very loving and empowering of her, but she said, I'm tired. I don't know how to tell him. I'm tired. I don't want to keep doing all of these things anymore. And it's a lot to navigate for families.
Sure. Yeah. It's hard to, I think people want to fix it, and I say this a lot when I do caregiver talks, and it's, people mean well and they want to fix it. And I have a client right now that's got an acquired brain injury, and she's fairly young, and her parents are involved, very involved, but they are in need of some training. We'll leave it at that. But it's a similar situation to what you described, is that they want to fix it, but it's like finding the balance of where do you draw the line in allowing this person to remain in their own autonomy, because they're still a human being, and again, I think people mean well, particularly
Absolutely.
caregivers. Then
Absolutely.
they want to help, they want to fix it, but we don't know how to do that necessarily on our own. And I
Hmm.
think a lot of people feel that they should know instinctually, or just be able to figure it out, but that's really not the case. We're dealing with a lot of unknowns as clinicians, and then, being a caregiver who's emotionally attached to this person, and invested and connected, especially when it's a parent.
Hmm.
That's a hard space to be in, and to try to feel like, oh my gosh, I've been your mom for the 38 years and I should know how to do this, and you don't.
Hmm. Hmm. It's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we just try to let everybody know that we're available. We try to set up trainings so that people can brush up on some supported conversation techniques, tools, techniques. We share technology ideas. And that's the beauty of groups too, because our members can come here and see what other people are doing, and I can help them bring that information home to their families um, and make those connections.
Yeah, and that's kind of leads into the next question because we were, kind of touching on the community and the peer connection that really are central to scale. And we've talked a little bit more about community and caregiving, but what about the peer connections at scale and that whole social engagement piece?
Mhm.
Can you explain why that's so important in aphasia recovery?
Absolutely. And I'm going to draw a reference from a non-aphasia source to start out with, and that's the Surgeon General. And he made quite a splash in 2023 when he identified what he called an epidemic of loneliness in America. And that's not people with communication disorders alone, that's all of us. And a fast-paced world, which is very screen focused and very work focused. And society has over time become less and less reliant on these face-to-face interactions and the support of peers in a social network. And if you think about that being identified as impacting the quality and length of your life, similar to smoking and drinking and lack of exercise, you can only guess the exponential impact on those with communication disorders for whom making those connections, finding those friends, replacing those lost relationships is so much more difficult. And then the compounded nature of stroke and brain injury on what we've already talked about, the idea of self, the idea of a role. If I'm not a speech therapist, what am I? If I'm not a lawyer, what am I? If I'm not the disciplinarian at home, what am I? And if we think about, everybody listening today, just how many conversations you've had today, whether it's on Zoom or on the phone or at your job, and those opportunities for natural conversation and communication are less and less and less for people with communication disorders, even if in their own home. Sometimes they're not included in activities and conversations because it's just too difficult.
Mm-hmm.
However, around the table here, everybody's in the same boat. The quote always comes to me: "We arrived on different ships, but we're all in the same boat now." And I think to one of my beloved members who was welcoming someone new into the group who was very nervous. And he just leaned over at one point and said, "You can't mess up here. You can't. Don't even worry about it." And then, another time he said to the same guy, "You better come up with something because we're all gonna wait. We're all good. We're all here for your message." And I think when newer members realize that everybody gets it, whether you come up with something or don't, or gesture it, or write it, or say it perfectly, we're all here for it. We all want to know, and everybody is included. The idea that, there is a value in belonging, in having a place where you know other people, but you are known. One of my favorite activities when students start is we have everybody's name in a cup, all the members' name in a cup, and they go around and pick a name that's not their own, and they have to introduce that person to the student. And so instead of introducing themselves, I have them introduce each other. And the idea that somebody might remember a story that they told a year ago, or a vacation they took, or a picture they showed them, or something they worked on in art together, it just always amazes me. And there's a lot of value in being known.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you say that too, because I see that again with my one-on-one clients because a lot of our patients want to know things about us too.
Mhm.
So, when I've worked with clinicians that are very kind of, I would say this is I think it's a valid term, closed off. They want to be like uber professional, or what they think is uber professional, but they don't engage. So it's a challenge, I think, especially when you have students, because they're taught sort of this rigid model of you go in, you're the professional, you tell the patients what they need to do, you give them feedback, and you just are this stoic thing, and you never show emotion, and you don't get connected. And that's not how real life works. And, I think that my imagination of what this program looks like is that your people who have been with you for a long time, they want to know, did you have a nice vacation? What did you go out to eat this weekend? What did you eat? Like basic, simple human connection things. And I think that's so important because it helps build a relationship. But it brings down this level of I'm this professional and I'm unattainable. So your communication disorder is always going to lend itself to not have a real connection with me as the professional. I'm going to tell you what to do.
Mhm.
And I think once we sort of peel that back and take that away, and we realize, our patients notice things. You got a new haircut, Miss Lisa, or that's a new shirt. I haven't seen you wear that. Like that's human connection,
Mhm.
right? And we're the communication professionals. So why aren't we doing more of that? Why aren't we supporting more of that?
Mhm. And I think, it just happens naturally that, then you realize that your activity, your conversation, your time here is a shared experience. It's not a recipe, a to-do list, not a read this, say this, write this. It's what did we
Hmm.
do together today? We talked about, well, I don't know, 17 different topics. We started out with baseball and we ended up with ice cream sundaes, and fairy tales were in there somewhere, and how that natural feel and flow of conversation is treatment,
Hmm.
is therapy. And um, you can't kind of it's no fun if you know all the answers, if you know what they're going to say, or you're all going to tell them what to say. That's not as fun or natural, and it's not really creating something new.
Yeah, and it's not teaching them how to reintegrate into any sort of community space where they may be interacting at the grocery store with someone they've never interacted with. They may be going back to church or going back to even a support group or just something fun, a book club, for example, something they want to do where they may meet someone new that the conversation isn't necessarily scripted.
Mhm.
Um, and I think it's also an opportunity when you're, using language to give them something new and novel to recall so that they can, you can go back from Friday to Monday and say, "Hey, do you remember what I told you I was doing this weekend?" Or I remember you said you were doing this. Did you do that? How did it go? Were you able to interact with people that you weren't familiar with, or some scenario like that? Because that is real life,
And
and I
they're the
think it's
best conversations when it's something novel, and it's even better when they get to teach me something, or it's a word I've never heard of, or a term that I've never heard of. And God love the internet. We can look up anything, and I'll say, my gosh, I never knew that. You taught me something that I'm excited about.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I think, a lot of SLPs are moving into this model of trying to bring more participation-based approaches into their setting. I think we're doing a good job-ish. We have room to grow as the seasoned professionals, but I think we're doing a better job of when we do have students or we have CFs, kind of peeling it back a little bit and saying, "Hey, it's okay for you to relax a little bit and ask questions about this person. And if they ask you a question, it's okay for you to answer within reason." Um, but what are some ways that SLPs who really want to bring this more participation-based approach, can really start using immediately.
Mhm. I think the way that we focus on it here in my team, I'm constantly challenging myself, my team, our students to look for the life in the life participation and start with yourself. What lit you up today? What put a smile on your face? What surprised you? What made you cry today? What brought a memory back from the past? What is something that you saw or heard someone do that inspired you for the future, or something that you might want to try? And when you start to think about your own life like that, it opens you up to explore these things with our clients, or just share them, or I'll share, insert into my Apraxia group a story from Good News Network on a hero rescuing a moose. That's actually one I have going on for tomorrow. And, I try to give them the opportunity to then share that story with someone else. Or, then we get off on a tangent on, what's the difference between this animal and this animal, an elk and a moose. And, then we go off, and that's kind of the natural course of things. But I'm sharing something that caught my eye and creating therapy from it, and hoping that that leads them to share something in their life. And I try to think about what's important to that person every day, because I know what's important to me every day. Is
Hmm.
it getting back to reading? Is it, putting something on their phone that can read a gospel verse to them every day, that then they can take a picture with their phone and send it to somebody they love to share it every day? Is there some way they can use emojis to, reach out or keep somebody in their thoughts who's going through a hard time? What's important to them every day, and how can they access and use that information? And technology is a great place to start if they have a phone or an iPad, or any kind of system at all. I try to explore, and again, I'm spoiled. I have times the average person is with us for 6 years. I still have two founding members with me after 16 years. So I have the benefit of time, but getting to know them and what's an experience from their past. Maybe they used to write poetry in college. Can you find one? Can you bring it in? And we'll write some more based on that. Maybe they were an artist, or they'd like to try an art. We have so many guys who are, for some reason, can keep all of the sports stats in their head. They know what happened, and they'll tell me in big game group, oh, just fast forward to the sixth inning because nothing happened until then. I'm like, how do you even, I don't remember that like that, but we both saw the same game and you seem to have retained a lot more of it than I did. Um, and how we can, explore some of these things that they're really good at or really interested in, and inject that into our conversations and treatment and therapy, even if it's something like an apraxia group, which is drill based. The internet, of course, is full of lists, icons, photos, videos, articles, fast facts, fun facts, did you knows, to look up anything that somebody might really enjoy from their past, and create therapy and treatment around it. And like I said, the best thing is when they get to teach us something. Um, and kind of exploring, well, what do you wish? Like, if you could think about anything that happens today, tomorrow, next week, next year, what do you wish? I wish I could go to Hawaii. Oh, I wish I could go to Hawaii too. And explore that in conversation, explore that through technology, create things to read, remember, say, sing, cook. We have a cooking group here, and monthly we try to coordinate some of the things we do. Well, I can't even think of the last thing that we did, but quotes from famous people, and then what were their famous recipes, and that's what they're going to make. They're going to make shrimp and grits this week, and then they're going to make this pineapple thing because this poet we looked up, you know, this was their favorite food or something like that. So how can we, find something and then build it out to kind of try it kind of try visiting Hawaii. Let's pick some beautiful pictures. We'll put them up on the community board. Maybe some of the folks in art will draw them. And then let's describe them. Let's come up with adjectives, sparkling, turquoise, water, you know, and there's a lot of things you can draw from just from wishes and dreams for
Yeah,
the
well, I mean,
future.
it's basically like those of us who, which this is not me, but people who do vision boards every year, or they do like a 5-year plan where they map it out on a poster board. It's sort of the same thing, and I think sometimes we take this technical lens of the things that we learn in graduate school, and we get so hyper focused on making this it is evidence based. What we're doing with life participation is 100% evidence based, but people don't learn that necessarily. I think some people come to it a little bit more naturally, but I think when they take the technical aspect of what you think you should be doing and kind of like, I don't know, my clinical supervisor at grad school used to say, pull the lens back. She always said, pull the lens back. Stop looking at the finite details and look at the bigger picture. And then the bigger picture will lend you to figure out those details, which is exactly what you just described. So, like, for example, I did this with a client one time that was a younger traumatic brain injury client. If you're going to go for a day at the beach, what do you need to take with you? What are those key components? And it seemed like people that we'd have people come in like PT and OT were waiting for me to be done, and they'd come in and they're looking at me like, that's not really therapy. But isn't it?
Hmm.
Isn't it? Because you need to know what you need to take with you. You need to know how you're going to get there. How much time is it safe for you to spend in the sun with the sunscreen, and when do you need to like stuff like that? It's so fundamental to what we do as human beings all the time. I love that you brought up cooking because again, my younger client, that's one of her things is she wants to be able to cook some meals for her kids who are very young, and she had an outpatient OT evaluation, and they were basically like, "Oh yeah, you're taking a shower by yourself. You're good to go. You don't really need us." And then they try to say, maybe you're a home health candidate, and I'm like, well, she's not because she can get to therapy, so she's not a home health. She's not homebound, but you need to be looking at safety wise, you know, can she's again, younger client, can she style her hair with a hot tool if she needed to use a curling iron? Can she talk you through those safety steps? So some of that I think for us overlaps between OT and us, but I think the cooking piece for me is certainly something I've done with a ton of people in the past because it is, even if it's not something they enjoy, it might be something that's a necessity, right? So I've had single guys who needed to be able to do something besides get a burger on the way home at a fast food joint. Now they're at home and they can't necessarily get out. They don't have transportation, so they need to eat. How do we do that? How do we make sure they're safe?
Involving planning, right? Hmm.
Planning, making sure they remember to turn the power off to the oven, the stove, close the refrigerator door. All these things that are steps in a task, but when you have a communication disorder, you might not be able to multitask and do all these things at the same time like you did before.
Hmm.
So I love that you brought the cooking piece up. You mentioned too that you have two people that have been with you pretty much since the beginning. Um, so you're talking, you said 16 years. Did they come in pretty early on after their stroke or acquired brain injury, or was it something that they had been living with for a while?
Well, actually, as I'm thinking math-wise here, it looks like 18 years, right? Because 2008 to 2026. Holy
I'm not a
moly.
math.
Yeah. One of our founding members, Roz had a stroke at the age of 35.
Oh, wow.
And let's see, she is now 66. Um, And so let's see if I'm subtracting again. So she had been living with the stroke and aphasia for almost 10 years and had raised her two sons along with her mom. And again, she had met, my partner Denise McCall through a research project, and that's where our first 15 members actually came from. And I cannot, overshare the importance of connecting people with research. It's free treatment. It keeps them engaged. It gives our members true purpose too. We have partnerships with Hopkins and University of Maryland. They do research here, and sometimes they're reimbursed monetarily, which can be a support to them. But
Mhm.
our folks really look at it as giving back, like making it easier for the next guy. And these are the folks that motivated Denise to create Scale, because once that grant ended, they had nothing. They were done. They were out of opportunities. There was no place for them. And that was our first 15. Don Wallace was another one. I think Don's stroke happened in his 50s. So he might have been within about 5 years or so when he first started with Scale. And they still come. And the why is what I always bring back to my team, and I challenge, okay, why does this person come here? If I'm trying to bring someone out, a member out of their shell, or if someone seems to have changed in their communication or their mood or something, and we talk about it. The first thing I did when we renovated this space after COVID was I put us all in the same room with a bunch of desks so that we could really talk and troubleshoot and leave the rest of the areas for our groups and activities. It was important to me that we were all of the same mind, the same focus on the clients, the members, and how to make this their place. And whenever we have a problem to solve, I start with why. Why does Roz still come here? Why does Don come after 18 years?
That's amazing. Yeah. And I'm sure you've probably had, because I know this is one of the things we talked about months ago was, you mentioned a couple of people who were able to go back to work, even if it was in a different capacity. Do you have like one or two that really sticks out as far as, um, maybe you didn't think that that's what was going to happen, but they kind of started here and then went to this other level as far as like a case study?
Yeah, one of our members, his name is Brian, actually came to us. Let's see, when he first had his stroke, I want to say he was about 40. And he was completely mute. He could not read, he could not walk. He was wheelchair bound for a year or so, and then started to improve physically, and then also began to say some words. And he has a very severe apraxia. His aphasia is mild, but his apraxia is pretty severe. And once he found scale, he just jumped in. He tried everything. He tried every class, every day, and then he picked his schedule, which was 2 days in person. He volunteered for the Aphasia Speak Out group, which you have to really put yourself out there. And he had a lot of trouble, reading, repeating. He would practice on his own to share his story and tell his story. One of the programs here at the League is called League Industries, and it is a printing and copying and mail service. We have contracts with the state, um, like your beloved tax information that comes in the mail in Maryland is in the Baltimore area is sent through League Industries, and League Industries does employ more than 50% of individuals who have disabilities. And so when Brian found out that this was a function of the League, he started with by reaching out to Division of Rehab Services, to doors, and taking some courses. And we supported him in creating his resume and his, letter, and how the mock interviews and all of that. And he actually works right next door to where I am. I am at scale right now, and at our League Industries printing service. And so his next goal is to return to driving. In between there too, he after his stroke, he couldn't live alone. Lived with his mother who passed. Then he moved in with a cousin who passed,
Mm.
and then lived with another cousin. And we tried to support him through finding out about different benefits and housing, and he got his own apartment after 10 years. That's another thing that I would really love to stress to clinicians is you're never really done getting better if you remain engaged,
Yeah.
barring another event or injury. People with stroke, aphasia, brain injury can continue to get better. And, Brian returned to living alone and working after 10 years, not 6 months, not 1 year. There's no plateau, there's no max. If you are engaged in life and participating in life, you continually have that option to improve.
That's amazing. That's actually on my website for my practice. So I talk about that, we don't really believe in plateaus because I think we were taught that early on that, once you get to 10 years, it's all done. You're all done. And we know that that's not true because just like for you and I, as we gain life experience and clinical experience, our perspective has changed. Maybe our philosophies grow and morph a little bit into this knowledge is power kind of thing. And it's the same thing for our patients once they're able to gain a new skill or strengthen a skill that maybe they always had but was impacted by their injury. They do rebuild their identity, they do rebuild their confidence, but they have to have that step and that investment in them that lets them see it so that they can continue to make those gains and do new things and do fun things and be involved in their own life. So
Absolutely.
I think what you all are doing is beautiful, and I hope I can come up and visit sometime because you're not that far
Anytime.
away. So
Anytime.
um, I would love that. Um, but again, I just thank you for the work that you do, and I thank you for agreeing to be on this talk with me and share in our National Better Speech Hearing Month. I guess that's what we're calling it now. I can never
Mhm.
remember. They changed the name and it got me all messed up. So um, I just thought it was important to have this featured during the month of May when we're celebrating all things speech pathology. So thank you so much for being with us, Lisa, and agreeing to do this.
Thank you for spreading the word about programs like this. I think these type of day programs are the future of where people can get this kind of ongoing support.
Yeah, yeah. And if we can get that going and keep it going is the thing, because I know the funding can always be an issue, but being creative helps too. So uh, thank you for that. And thank you for the work of your partner as well. And just as a reminder, if you've joined us for this live presentation and your state license requires live CEUs, be sure to complete all course modules, including the one that says complete course before the end of the day on your Speech Therapy PD account. Again, thank you, Lisa, for being with us, and I look forward to talking with you soon.
Thanks much.